Welcome to the Imperial Truth. I'm your host Eric, and I'm gonna build some Legiones Astartes lists. This is weird. Let's try it. So, couple caveats. I am not Legiones Astartes player. Have not played them. I've used them as allies a couple times early in the edition. I'm not familiar with everything that they do. What I'm going to present here, they're not optimized lists. So don't come at me in the comments and be like, you could have optimized this. That's yeah, I probably could have done a better job if I was a Legiones Astartes player. The idea here is to come up with some things that are kind of flavorful, that play the game, that do the things you need to do to win and play, but also sort of tell a story and are flavorful. One of the things that I will push back on from a video a while ago was some people in the comments were upset that about third edition Horus Heresy that apparently tactical Marines are obligatory now, and maybe we need to have a discussion about that. But the idea was that everything was homogeneous and the same across all of your Space Marine armies because you had to take tactical Marines to be powerful. But again, if we're arguing about flavor, power is not a question there. The idea here is to establish a list that plays. I am going to use tactical Marines a lot because they are the backbone of most of the legions, and it makes sense to have some in most lists. I will say this: that the internal balance of the game it's really good right now. I think that the internal balance of the game is actually kind of remarkable. When we say internal balance, I guess it's worth noting, I'm talking about like if you are playing Blood Angels, it doesn't really matter what you bring. There are no units that are sort of so much more powerful that um, if you bring them, you will, auto win. And there are no units that I'm aware of that are so terrible that if you bring them, you will auto lose. Now, if you brought, say, all of the Arachne defense lasers or whatever they're called, you will probably lose the game, right? But if you focus on bringing a relatively balanced list, right? You have some things that can score, you have some things that can do vanguard, you have some things that can hold objectives, you have some things that can tank shots and do withstand some fire, use some things that can put out some damage, right? You have answers for tanks and answers for infantry, and you sort of play the game in Horus Heresy in third edition. You have a good chance of winning the game, and the sort of like uh, uh, you know threshold for different units and what they bring to the table is pretty limited. And I feel like this is the same case for Mechanicum. Not to derail the video, but in Mechanicum, we have, for example, your Myrmidon Destructors and your Castellix Destructors, and those very much fill the same role. They are very similar units, and they have different advantages and disadvantages to each. But I don't think that bringing one over the other is inherently good or bad. I think that they're both relatively equal in power, and that's good, right? There may be a better way to do some of these lists. And if there are, please leave it in the comments. If you are an Astartes player and you see something I do and you're just like, this is a terrible idea, let me know why and help me to learn and to be a better player. And if you see something and you're like, wow, this is actually pretty cool, also, maybe mention that because it's fun to see people's reactions to things. So this video is in response to somebody's comment that they wanted to see me as a Mechanicum player try and make some Legiones Astartes lists. So these are all for Zone Mortalis. I'm not ready for sort of the big boy games at 3,000 points with this stuff, but we're going to do our best and we're going to see what happens. And I did leave one in here that I'm not happy with, and we'll talk about why I'm not happy with it as we go through. But I think that's also kind of instructional to all of this. All right, so let's get started. List one is an Iron Warriors list. When I have allied my Legiones Astartes in here, it has been my relatively small Iron Warriors force. So we're going to start with something that I'm kind of familiar with. The idea here is to be themed as sort of the expendable troops that were holding the outer solar system during the early solar war. So if you read the Solar War, and we have these initial attacks that happen on, say, Pluto and Uranus and other places out at the fringe of the solar system. And in those, we have a lot of inductii and basically expendable chaff that can kind of be thrown into these systems, that can hold the planets, that can take them, that will withstand or be destroyed by whatever tricks Rogel Dorn has set up. But they won't necessarily cost the legions a lot of resources, right? And so we see this sort of like we're just throwing chaff into these systems. The idea, that's sort of the theme from the flavor side of things. From a mechanical perspective, if we're going to represent that in game, the way that we can do this is to deny our opponent those blood for blood points. So blood for blood is going to score you a base point, 1 point for every unit that gets killed. And you can't really stop your opponent from doing that. However, Vanguard in Zone Mortalis is much better than it is in sort of the main game. And so if your opponent is bringing Vanguard, this list limits the number of points that they're going to score from Vanguard on you. In addition, because sector control is only units, and line does play a role, and we have a couple of line units in here, but it's just the number of units that you have. By sort of flooding the board with units that are essentially Adeptus Astartes, right? They're toughness 4, 3+ saves. They're still good models. Maybe not from a Legiones Astartes point of view, but from a Solar Auxilia or Mechanicum point of view, they are good troops to have on the board. So we're going to flood the board with those. And yes, as my opponent, you are going to kill some of them, but my use of the expendable special rule is going to limit the number of points that you're gonna get from those things. So we're gonna flood the board, we're gonna control zones, score points for that, and not give up a lot of points on blood for blood because it doesn't matter. We're also not giving up a lot of points here on the Slayer of Champions either. And so the idea here is that we're just giving the opponent lots of bad choices. And I feel like this is a very good thematic Iron Warriors force, right? The idea is that maybe this Warsmith is disgraced and they have been tasked by Perturabo as, or the Triarch as, control this station or take this whatever this moon, and they know that they're just being thrown to the wind. They don't matter at all, and they're going to die. So that is the list. So let's look at what the list looks like. We're going to start with the Strike Force primary detachment. So I'm really leaning into these Zone Mortalis detachments here because I think that they're really good for two reasons. One, with without having a prime advantage in the command slot, we're really pushing people away from that Paragon of Battle champion that's just really powerful and really hard to deal with in any game, but especially a Zone Mortalis game. And by having other slots in here that we can use, for instance, in this one, there's shock assault slots or heavy assault slots. We can sort of circumvent needing that extra command model for the additional detachments. And when we do that, we free up those points, that 150 points or so that you're going to have on something that has master the Legion. I don't remember what it is, but it's the command ability that gives you 2 detachments. We don't have to do that, right? And one of the complaints that I got in that video a while ago was that you always have to have a Centurion and you always have to have X and Y and tactical Marines and all this stuff. So we're going to move away from that. We're going to start with the Warsmith with Cyber Familiar. Cyber Familiar is going to give us our +2 to our intelligence checks. And this is important because we're going to want to be able to make that reaction for closing doors on people. And we also want to be able to interact with the little cogitator arrays if we're playing that scenario. So we want to be able to play the game in that way. And this is a good way to do it. The Warsmith is a great model. The Graviton Hammer is really good in melee and pretty good into challenges. Yes, you will be swinging last, but the Warsmith is pretty durable and will be able to take most punches from a lot of characters. So this is sort of your Praetor level character. You're going to get your additional reaction, which means you'll have 2 per turn. which again is pretty good in Zone Mortalis. That's sort of where the Legiones Astartes is gonna live in most cases. So we've got them. We'll talk about where they're gonna go in a minute, but they're a good model with Battlesmith and just overall solid. And the model looks phenomenal. Then we're going to take a tactical squad. This tactical squad is going to fill our prime slot. They're just tactical squad without Nuncio Vox, without anything. And they're going to take the unfavored prime advantage. This gives them expendable, which again leans into that idea that we can just throw these guys away and not really worry too much about them. In fact, the best place for this unit to be is sort of intercepting a vanguard unit. Put them in front of a vanguard unit, be like, go ahead, you can spend a turn or two killing this unit, but you're not going to get the points that you would for something else that's more important in this, right? You're making your opponent make those bad choices. Again, we have 3 units of Inductii in our other troop slots here, and we're leaning into the Inductii because, again, they also have the expendable special rule. So we can hold zones with our tactical squad, and we will have another tactical squad in a minute, I think, and then our Inductii can go up and screen and die and do things because, again, we're Iron Warriors. We don't care if we throw them away, and with the expendable special rule, they are limiting the points that your opponent scores. Now, keep in mind, they will always score the base 1 point for killing your unit, but they won't score their points from Vanguard will be reduced by 1. So in most cases, a Vanguard 2 unit is going to go back down to 1, which basically makes them not Vanguard in this case. I haven't put any Nuncio Voxes in here. You could if you wanted to, but again, the point here isn't for these units to stick around and do things and score. They're to tie your opponent up and muddy up the board. And we're going to have a lot of just normal chaff dudes in this list. Then we're going to take a Mortalis Destroyer squad. I think that's kind of cool for this list. They have, one more thing. The Iron Warriors special rule is that they don't suffer penalties for their cool checks. So it doesn't, I mean, it's not like it's going to save you all the time, but it is worth noting that things that are, pinning 2 or suppressive 1 aren't going to be very effective or out as effective into the Iron Warriors as other armies. So we don't necessarily need to spend those 10 points on the Nuncio Vox. All right, back to the Mortalis Destroyer Squad. So the Mortalis Destroyer Squad also has the unfavored prime advantage, just again leaning into this idea of using them kind of aggressively. There are 10 models. They don't have a lot. Offensively, they're not keyed up to do a lot of damage. We could put a ton of points into this squad, but right now, the way they're already at 205 points. So they're already kind of expensive. They have chainswords and bolt pistols. They actually have 2 bolt pistols each, which is kind of fun. And I think that they have a rule. I'm checking right now. I'm pretty sure that they have a rule that allows them to shoot both bolt pistols during the turn. And so these guys are there to go up and melee and do a little bit of damage on things and kill things. And I've given them the Phosphex bombs specifically so they can try to trigger your leadership tests. So they're there to get panic and try and hurt things. I just like the idea of a unit of destroyers being thrown in here, and like I said, they're pretty good overall. And yeah, I think they're fine. Then we have the Tyrant Siege Terminators. We've got 6 of them in here, 4 points. That's just what we had points for, and we're not going to give them any real prime advantages or anything because they're probably going to be running with the Warsmith, who is already going to be, and they're already going to be cool +1 for having being heavy and all having heavy. But these guys are really good. Just overall, they have power fists and combi bolters, which allows them to do a lot of shooting. And then they have the rocket launchers, which might seem a little weird in Zone Mortalis because they can't take advantage of that 48-inch range usually. But they're basically las cannon shots. So they're strength 9, AP 3, and that's pretty solid, and they have heavy damage. Again, they're not going to be amazing into other Terminators, but into your regular infantry and stuff. These guys are just going to eviscerate them. And yeah, I like them. They're very thematic for the list. If you wanted to swap them out for, like, if you wanted to go with just a regular destroyer squad and a regular unit of cataphracti terminators here, you could, and you could save the points. But again, I don't think I just don't think that it's as big a swing as people think it is. And yeah, these are pretty. I'm not going to justify it. I think that's a cool choice, and I like the idea. In addition, we are taking the Hammer of Olympia detachment. This is the special one for the Iron Warriors, and we're grabbing another Inductii squad. So if you're keeping track, we're at 40 Inductii in this list. We're taking another tactical squad with the Unfavored, which, they're still a line unit. They just also gain the Expendable rule here. So we've got 60 regular infantry on the board, which is just a ton. If you've played Zone Mortalis on the new 3x4 boards, this is gonna flood the board. This is a lot of infantry in here. And then I also added another squad of Terminators with the Unfavored. So a Cataphracti unit of Terminators. Again, no real big upgrades or anything here. We're not going to spend a lot of points on upgrading people. The idea here is this is a Warsmith and their retinue, and the other units of their sort of demi company who have been thrown into this area, and he knows that they're not coming out. He knows that they're not coming out on the other side alive, and they're just there to do their bitter duty, which is one of the rules for the Mortalis destroyers, and they're just going to kill things and be killed, but hopefully in the end of the day they will hold the station and deny as many points as possible to the enemy, which again, from my perspective, looking out from the outside looking in, seems like a really thematic way to play Iron Warriors. So I like when we compare the play style of the game to the flavor and build that. And again, I'm probably making too big of a deal about past comments as I should. But one of the things that was in my video about the drop pod assault was that I was using too much imagination, which is just silly. But I don't think this requires a lot of imagination, right? You can see how the narrative writes itself. All right. With that said, our second list is the Flesh is Weak. So this is an Iron Hands themed list. And this one is intended to represent sort of your boarding actions, maybe your shattered legions, going ship to ship, just wreaking havoc and causing vengeance on here. Unlike the previous list, which didn't really care about losing units and was more focused on denying you points, even if you killed their units, this list is going for durability. We are focusing on the Iron Hand special rule, which is -1 strength to your shooting attacks when you get shot at. The Immortals here, I'm not entirely sure of. They seem good, but they also seem really expensive for what they do. They're still cheaper than sort of veteran breachers, which get 2 wounds each, and they kind of fill the same role, and they have a 5-up feel no pain, which seems good to me. But they are also only 1 wound, which, yeah, I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you think that they're good or bad, or what your experience has been. Should we just swap them out for veteran breachers and pay the extra points? I don't know. We can also swap the tactical marines that are in this for inductii, but I think that you probably want to get apothecaries then, and that's just extra points that we're putting into a unit that is, they're fine, but I think the tacticals are going to do the same role in here without costing the points for the apothecaries. So we're starting with the Bulwark primary detachment, and then you probably know where I'm going with this, but we'll get there in a minute. We've got an Iron Father with the Paragon Blade. I think Paragon Blades are good. We're going to see them a couple times in here. So when we can take them, we're going to take them. That crit hit 6 is pretty good, and AP2 is really good, especially if we're playing into challenges for Slayer of Champions. We're going to grab a Cyber Familiar because this guy also has Battlesmith, so we want to be able to use that special reaction and make that more consistent. And we're going to grab the Gorgon Pattern Armor because that's flavorful and it's cool. It's cool armor, and I like it. We're also going to grab a Forge Lord with a Cyber Familiar. This is maybe going a little too heavy into the characters, but I like the Forge Lord, and we only really need 1 detachment in addition to our primary detachment to make this work, so we're fine with that. Again, the Forge Lord is there. They have Battlesmith. They can interact with the cogitators. They can do the special reaction. They can do a lot of things in here. Then, of course, we're going to take a Leviathan. I am going with the paired Siege Claws because that seems good to me. And Meltaguns in the Fist are always good. We're going to go ahead and grab Flamers and a Phosphex Discharger because who doesn't like putting statuses on units? And Heavy Flamers and Phosphex Dischargers seem pretty good in a Zone Mortalis situation. This Leviathan is going to take the Ironclad, which allows it to participate in challenges, which is terrifying. Now it is only going to be weapon skill 4, which kind of makes it rough in challenges for it. It's not going to hit very hard, but when it does hit, it's going to do a lot of damage and potentially kill guys. It's fun to have and it's cool. And having a Leviathan stomping around the board is very Iron Hands. Then we're going to grab 2 units of Medusan Immortals with 10 models each. I gave both of them Graviton guns because, again, as a Mechanicum player, I really think having access to just spamming out status effects on your opponent is good. They're going to fail some of them. So double graviton guns means that we are going to potentially put pinning on a unit, and that is good. And graviton guns are fine; they're totally respectable guns. And the idea of Iron Hands running around with a bunch of graviton guns, I like it. It seems kind of Mechanicum-y as well. One of the units is going to be combat veterans. That'll give them, +1 to all the stats that matter. And because they are mortals, I believe they do have the heavy keyword. I'm going to try and check while I'm talking. But if they have the heavy keyword because they have the boarding shields, then that would allow them to get the +1 for combat veterans and the +1 for their what's it called? I literally just clicked on the wrong list. I'm so sorry. +1 for heavy as well. So they get both of those in this situation. Lastly, I tossed in 2 Castellux Battle Maniple in here with no upgrades to them. They just have the claws and the bolters and stuff. So nothing special here for them. However, they are kind of nice because they are automata. You can kind of fire and forget them, send them off the board, and they can't ever get a status, and they can never run away from combat. And so if there's a unit that you just want to sort of block the hall for, you can kind of stick them there, and they will block the hall for a little while. And in Space Marine points, they're not super expensive. They're like 100 points for 2, which is fine. And I am pulling it up, and they do indeed have heavy on the Medusan Mortal. So they would get the +1 for combat veterans and the +1 for their heavy keyword. That gets them to cool. That would get them to cool 12, which is pretty stellar. Then we have, wow, that's sorry, didn't know we had an animation there. So we have a Shock Assault Detachment. That is our Gorgon Terminator squad. So they're going to be Shock Assault. They're going to pop in here. We have 5 Gorgon Terminators. We'll run them with our Forge Lord because that's kind of fun to do. And they're pretty good. They're just slightly better Terminators than our normal Terminators, and they can walk around and do things. I think that most of the time, though not always, I do have a list that doesn't do this, but I think you're generally going to want at least 1 unit of Terminators in your Zone Mortalis because they're just really good, and it's easy to get them in combat in most cases. The third list here is the Keys of Hel. So I mentioned earlier that I had a list that I wasn't happy with, and this is the one that I'm not happy with. So the idea here is this is a Blackshields list. We are building something to represent sort of what Ironfather Creus or maybe Edred Har did, where they turn their battle brothers basically into undying automata zombies. Which is just a great idea. It's such a great visual, and it's this. If you've not read the fiction about them, it is really fun. It's very creepy and dark, and all the things that make this setting, especially the Horus Heresy, great. It is Ironfather Creus is a monster. He's a monster. He's a terrible, terrible, terrible person, but he's also a loyalist, and he's fighting against the traitors. So good guy? I don't know. It's great. So this is also maybe to play off the Saturnine box. Once I got into this list, I was like, you could just do this with the Saturnine box or mostly with the Saturnine box and make this work, which was also kind of a fun idea. Um, when I started, this was my favorite list in terms of ideas, and I'm not very happy with it now that it's done. But we'll talk about it. We're taking Broken Helix and the Flesh is Weak as our two sort of Blackshields things. The Broken Helix is a little weird. Why are we running clones? I'm flavoring it that it's like cybernetic bits. So they're not necessarily clones in as much as they are cybernetic guys. So they're dumber. They have a 5-up feel no pain from the clones rule. And then we have our Flesh is Weak, which basically makes these guys automata. I mean, it does make them automata. And that creates a whole bunch of fun things as well. We're going to go with the Strike Force primary detachment again. Again, we're leaning into the Saturnine thing. We don't have to. You could do this with Terminators. My thought process with the Saturnine is they have a higher toughness, which makes some of the things that we're going to do kind of funny, and they have more wounds. And so they can kind of play this game that we're going to try and play a little bit more than other groups, maybe. So let's talk about it. So we're going to go with the Saturnine Praetor. We're going to give them a War Axe and a Concussion Hammer. Why? It's just points. That's what I had points for, and I can make it work. The Saturn, I don't really like, I'm not married to any of the Saturnine weapons, but we're going to go with what we can because that's what we have points for. Saturn Praetor, War Axe, Concussion Hammer. If we need to do challenges with this guy, we have the option of doing the Concussion Hammer and hitting last, but really hard, or we can hit the War Axe and hit earlier and whatnot. This guy is a tank with toughness 6. We'll talk about what that means in a little bit. And 6 wounds. We'll talk about what that means in a little bit. There are some things that this list is going to do that are kind of fun. We're also going to grab a librarian with biomancy. Why biomancy, Eric? That's a great question. I've wanted to do this for a while, and we'll probably do a video at some point about allies into Mechanicum from other factions. And librarian with biomancy is top of my list. Biomancy is a psychic power, and you would think because it's biomancy that we can only use it on models that are alive. But it turns out that the rules for biomancy allow you to do any model that you want to, and basically give them during the assault phase. You can give them +2 to their toughness and +2 to their strength. And if we're keeping score, that right away gets our Saturnine Praetor to toughness 8, which is craziness. Then we're going to grab 3 tactical squads, 10 models each. We're going to make them clones. Everybody's going to be clones who can be clones in here. And one of them will get the logistical benefit primary advantage. So we're going to try and bring in another model with this. The model that then we're going to grab our veteran despoiler squad. This is just 5 models with lightning claws and clones. Why veteran despoilers and not regular despoilers? Because the price difference is pretty great. The reason here is I would like them to have 2 wounds each. That's it. We want 2 wounds each. If we put them with the librarian, we can get these veteran despoilers up to strength 6, toughness 6 with biomancy, which is pretty good. They've got 2 wounds each and a 5-up feel no pain. So that's pretty durable, and we'll talk about what else we can do to them in just a minute. So I think that's fine. It's not outstanding, but it's okay. Then we're going to grab our heavy assault detachment. We want our Saturnine Terminator squad. We're going to grab our disruptor. Oh, sorry. The veteran despoilers were our elite section. So this is our heavy assaults. We are going to grab a Saturnine Terminator squad. This is 3 models with disruptor fists and plasma bombards. Again, these weapons are largely determined by points. If you think that we should move around points elsewhere, we can do that. The Master Sergeant here is going to make them be able to do challenges, and again they're pretty durable and pretty strong overall. They are toughness 6 with 3 wounds each, and again the 2-up 4-up with our what's it called, our ability that our feel no pain from clone. Oh no, sorry, they don't get clones. these guys do not get clones. I misspoke. They do not have a 5 feel no pain, but they're still pretty durable and pretty killy. They're not outstanding. Like, I don't think Saturnine Terminators are as good as what they maybe should be for as big and bulky and new as they are, but that's okay. They don't have to be. They're still a solid unit. And they also have a special rule that gives them, I'm trying to pull it up real quick while I'm talking, and I should have printed all of this off. They have a special piece of war gear that gives them something about more durability against like fire weapons, which is also pretty here. Thermal diffraction field. So if they are shot with las plasma, melta, or flame, the strength of the hits goes down by 1. And this ends up being really cool because now at toughness 6, we're going to be able to get them very easily to toughness 7, which means that lasguns and lasguns can't wound them at all. Meltaguns are wounding them on 4s. Trying to do the math in my head. Plasma guns are wounding them on 5s, and flamers are wounding them on 6s. And that just makes them all the more durable. Then we have another Saturnine Terminator squad, and I've given these guys Disruptor Fists and the Twin Heavy Disintegrators, again, because of points. That's just what we want. I really wanted these guys to have 2 sets of Twin Heavy Disintegrators. But again, that's maybe not great because overload is a thing with these guys. Anyway, so we've got some tactical Marines to score objectives. We have a unit of veteran despoilers that we can put our librarian with, and they can go charge into things at like strength 6 with lightning claws, which seems outstanding, and toughness 6, which is pretty good for Space Marines. Yeah, not too bad so far. Then finally, we're going to grab an allied detachment. And this is where it sort of maybe goes off the rails. Maybe this is something that we need to do into a 3,000 point list rather than a 1,500 point list. But I really think that this is kind of funny. So we have a Magos, and they're bringing 2 apprentice cadres. The apprentice cadres are our tech priests with Archimandrite as well. So if you've not played Mechanicum, Archimandrite allows you to attach to a unit and not suffer the penalty for attaching to a unit. And so our Magos, who has a Cortex controller, which allows our automata to make reactions. Otherwise, none of the automata in this list can make reactions. Cyber Familiar for additional bonuses for all of the intelligence checks that you're going to make. Overcharge reactors, which is a cyberthergic power. It's sort of like a Psychana power for Mechanicum that can give us +1 to hit and basically +1 weapon skill or ballistic skill, or sorry, weapon skill and ballistic skill. Or we can do +1 strength and toughness, or we can do +1 initiative and movement. But what we're really going to focus on here is probably the toughness one, and get some of these things kind of up into the realm of being silliness. So our Saturnine Terminators can be toughness 7. If we use the librarian power on them during the assault phase, we can get them up to toughness 9, which is just silly. We can get those veteran despoilers up to strength 7, toughness 7, which again is really good into a lot of different things. Yeah, it's just overall good. And then usually we wouldn't have to worry about statuses with our automata tactical Marines or any of the automata. However, if we attach an Archimandrite Magos to them, which we can do because Magos can attach to units that are automata, then we have to roll. However, our Archimandrite Magos is leadership 10, cool 10. So they're pretty unlikely to break in combat anyway. Same thing with our apprentice cadre tech priest. So we got 2 of those. Those are both combat veterans. So we're getting +1 to all of our checks and whatnot. And then these guys are also leadership 10, cool 10, which is really good for basically a sergeant level character. In addition to all of this, because we have so many battlesmiths in this list, we can heal our units. So if your Saturnine Terminator takes 1 or 2 wounds, we can just build that back up to the top if you and restore all their wounds because they are automata. We can do the same thing with our veteran despoilers. If they lose a wound, we can heal one. That's kind of why the 2 wound guys are important for this. Anyway, I like it in concept. Like I really like it as an idea. It's very thematic that you've got maybe this maybe the Magos is really the leader of the army and everybody else is sort of a puppet and because they're all automata, including the librarian. It's kind of a fun concept. However, it is a lot of points into that ally detachment that take away from the main detachment and might not be worth it. It might be worth it to just take that 200 and what is it like 250 points and dump that into another unit that is good for the army. Anyway, let me know what you think. I like it in concept. I think it'd be fun to play. List 4 is Courage and Honor, so Ultramarines faction. And the idea here is I wanted to show off the fact that Solar Auxilia can ally into Space Marines and get bonuses when they do. So Ultramarines seem like a good way to do this. They have a lot of combined arms type themes in their armies. We see a lot with the Ultramarine Guard kind of fighting alongside the Legiones Astartes. And mechanically, you're playing with a lot of reactions. So the Solar Auxilia ability that you get from joining the Astartes is always a reaction. And in Zone Mortalis, you're basically limited to your 2 reactions: your one for your Praetor, and then your one for being 1,500 points. However, Ultramarines, their army rule is that they basically get another free reaction. They can reduce the cost of one of their reactions down to 0. So they basically get a third reaction constantly in the game, which is pretty handy. It's pretty cool that they can do that. And so what we're going to do is we're going to build a list that lets us play the reaction game pretty well. And again, I like it. I think it's kind of a fun idea, but let's talk about it. So we're going to start with the Strike Force primary detachment. Strike Force is probably the best one for most Space Marine, just a generic Space Marine force. It's just got a lot of things that they want. And we're going to fill the Strike Force detachment out a lot. So we're going to take a Praetor with Paragon Blade and the Argium pattern boarding shield. I wanted to say Argyrum because it looks like Euro, the sandwich. However, it's silver is the base root, so it's Argyum, I guess. So the Argyum boarding shield is a unique thing for Ultramarines. It basically gives them a 4-up invuln in melee, which is very good because we're going to put this guy into combat and he's going to want to be in challenges. So Paragon Blade and Argyum boarding shield gives us that, and this unlocks our additional reaction point. Then in our command slot, we're going to take an Overseer with Power Mace, and we're also going to give them an Argyum pattern boarding shield in case they end up in combat, and it's going to look cool to have an Overseer with a Power Mace and a boarding shield. That'll look pretty fun to put on the board. We're going to run a Breacher squad with 10 models. They're going to give them combat veterans, again, doubling up on this heavy combat veterans thing to make our cool as high as we can get. We're going to take a Nuncio box and 2 Graviton guns. Again, Graviton guns are good, and if we can pop statuses, a pinning status on guys, we want to do it. And I think that's good. Pinning prevents you from scoring and from moving, which is really good in a game where movement is king. Then we're going to take an Inductii squad because they're cool. We'll take an Evocatus here as basically your sergeant model. We'll give them a Nuncio box and 2 rotor cannons. Again, rotor cannons are going to give us those opportunities for our status effects. And yeah, I like that idea. I like the fact that we're giving the machine guns to the kids so that they can, because they're not necessarily as good at shooting them. We'll take a Nemesis Destroyer squad because they look cool. And they are going to take Phosphex bombs, 2 Destroyer missile launchers, 2 Graviton guns, all the statuses here, and Nuncio box. And again, if you're familiar with Ultramarines lore, they do use destroyer weapons. However, there's this fight that happens. I forget what the short story is or novella with Gilliman and basically they attack some orcs, and the orcs are on a planet that has been destroyed. And Gilliman sort of realizes after the fact that it was destroyed because they nuked themselves, the humans did. And after that, he's much less excited about the destroyer squads, and they sort of fall out of favor. However, we're going to use them here because they are cool, and I like the idea of using them with our Ultramarines. Then we have a Praetorian Breacher squad, again, leaning into this boarding action, breacher type thing. These guys have Legantine axes, which are actually really good power axes. Nuncio Vox, Master Sergeant, 10 models. They are expensive. We get 3 of the Legantine axes, 1 on the Sergeant, 2 on the regular guys. And everybody else, I think, has power swords in this unit. It's a good unit. It's a good melee unit. It should be scary to go into this unit and have to try and deal with them. Other detachments in this army are going to be an Invictus Suzerain squad. This is 5 guys. These all have Legantine axes because that's cool. So we're loading up on all the sort of thematic Ultramarine stuff in here, and they all have boarding shields, which again is kind of fun. So this is going to be a really fun looking army. And then we're going to grab a Tech Marine with Cyber Familiar and Combat Veterans. Why are we doing this, Eric? This is crazy. It doesn't fit with anything. This gives us access to slamming doors in people's faces. And I think it's very Ultramarine to have that contingency in place. What have we got in this list? We've got some units that are really good at shooting. We've got some units that are really good at meleeing. We've got some units that are pretty durable, right? We've covered all of our bases. The one thing that is glaring in this is we have no way to interact with the objectives when they are the like cogitator units, and we can't slam doors in people's faces. And so we are bringing this, guys, so we can do that. Also, we have 3 reactions every single turn, so we're going to make use of that. But we still have a chunk of points left over, so we're going to bring 1 more detachment, and that 1 more detachment is going to be a unit of Solar Auxilia. So we're going to take the Ultima Powder cohort with these guys. I forget what. I think it was Close Order was the sort of ability that we took here. But this is just essentially a line command section with command vox in our combat veterans to get their abilities up as high as we can get it. We want that leadership and cool to be as high as possible, because with our vox interlocks, we can use them to boost our las rifle sections. So we have 2 10-man las rifle sections with blast chargers, and they have the Vox interlock as well, and the Auxilia Vixilia, which means that we only take our checks for casualties at 50% rather than 25%. So why am I doing all of this? So the reason behind this is the Ultramarines have a special reaction that allows them to shoot another unit into I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. Sorry. I think it's basically return fire, but you're returning fire with an off unit. So if I have my guys with my axes and my shields who they don't have shots that they're going to want to take reaction shots with, maybe the Nemesis unit with all their crazy weaponry will want to shoot in their place if they also have line of sight. But we have a similar reaction with the Solar Auxilia guys, right? So what we're doing is we're stacking all of these kind of reactions that are going to allow us to return fire or to shoot with another unit into things. I think the one for these guys is basically you can shoot if one of your friendly units is being charged. I'm not remembering off the top of my head. I'm so sorry. I should have reviewed it before I did it. But basically, we're playing into we're just going to be reacting all the time. We're going to have 3 reactions every single turn. We're going to slam doors in people's faces. If you shoot me, I'm going to shoot you back. If you charge me, I'm going to shoot you, right? Like we're just doing all of this stuff that's going to make the game. We're gonna stack everything in our favor, which is a very Ultramarines thing to do. Kind of have contingencies for everything, have all our bases covered, and be playing the game in all of the phases, including in your opponent's turn, which I think fits really well with the theme. The last of these armies, this one's maybe a little bit mean. This is the one that started this. This is how I started thinking about this. So this is Sons of Horus one, and this is a Catulan Reavers themed force. This is themed specifically after the Catulan Reavers that we see in the book Saturnine, which is, if you followed this channel for any amount of time, is my favorite. I think it's my favorite Horus Heresy book. But yeah, so that's the concept here. And I think that this is actually a really good, probably a really good force. So let's talk about it. It might be too good, but it will be fun. So we're going to start with our line breaker primary detachment. So we're leaning into elites right away, and that's going to be the theme for the whole force. We're going to grab our Praetor with Paragon Blade, and we only really care about the Paragon Blade here because we want them to be doing challenges because they are a Catulan Reaver, and that is what they do. They're going to go kill things and do mirror coin stuff and ganger stuff and kill people in the dark of the hallways. We're also going to grab a Legion champion with a Volkite Serpenta and a Paragon Blade, again, so that they can run around in the shadows and go shiv people with their knives. Unfortunately, we can't make them Paragon of Battle because the Linebreaker primary detachment doesn't allow that. But nevertheless, this is still a great model to have. So we got two really good fighters right out of the gate that are going to be able to do challenges. Then we're going to take a veteran despoiler squad. The veteran despoiler squad is just 10 models, Vexilla for winning combats, Nuncio Vox for avoiding our combat statuses, our tactical statuses, and then we're going to take 10 pairs of lightning claws and Master Sergeant. So this guy can also do challenges, but he's also not a slouch in melee, just in general. So again, really good choice in terms of this. Then we're going to grab two Cataphracti Terminator squads, 5 models each, with a pair of lightning claws on all of them. Again, leaning into this idea, lots of attacks, shivving people in the backs. I like the idea of lightning claws on Sons of Horus. It's very themed for sort of their Luna Wolf background. And I don't know, it feels right. Let me know if you disagree, but I think it's a good choice for them overall. I know that I'm giving up their faction ability by doing this as well. So don't yell at me in the comments. I understand. I don't think that faction ability is very good. And so it's not a big deal that we're not leaning into it. Then we're grabbing some additional detachments. We're going to take 2 more despoiler squads. And those despoiler squads are also have lightning claws. Those despoiler squads are going to have lightning claws on the sergeant, Nuncio Vox. We're going to take one with a Master Sergeant and one with teleport transponders. I will pull up the detachment in a minute to talk about what it is. So the idea here is that we can, again, put these guys into wherever we want and have them killing models or teleporting in and holding things. These are in our Sons of Horus Supremacy Cadre detachment. So that's where they're coming from here. And they're just regular despoiler squads. One is Master Sergeant, one is teleport transponders. And they're just here to sort of hold objectives, hold zones, or go after zones. Then we have in our Army Vanguard, we have a unit of 10 despoilers, veteran despoilers, again with pairs of lightning claws on everyone, and Nuncio Vox, Vexilia, Master Sergeant. So if you're keeping track, this is a lot of high weapon skill, high attacks, very melee focused army. I like it. I think it's kind of fun. There's lots of Vanguard here. Although the despoilers have line 2, so they can hold zones or help hold zones. We're going to score a lot of points from killing enemy models, which seems good for Sons of Horus. Strike off the head. And we've got lots of opportunities for really good, really solid challenges. Even the veteran sergeant in the veteran despoilers, the Master Sergeant there, is cranking away with just an absolute ton of attacks. And I think I forgot to put that here. Let's add it real quick, and I'll calculate those for you. So yeah, he is at weapon skill 6, 4 attacks. And then I think he gets an extra for the lightning claws. He's gonna get 2 extra attacks. He's gonna get 6 attacks for the lightning claws. And that's pretty good. I think that's pretty solid. But yeah, that's it for today. I think I think this is fun. I think that there's a lot of flavor to be had in the lists. If you think that these aren't good lists, let me know. If you think I could have done better with the flavor or just the lists in general, also let me know. I appreciate all of the engagement that I get. Zone Mortalis is lots of opportunities to have fun variety in your lists and do things that maybe you wouldn't do in bigger games. It's a better system. It's a smaller game. It's a lot simpler to play. You don't have to worry about covering your bases for like armor 14 tanks and things like that. You get to bring a smaller selection of things. One of the lists that I toyed around with, and I just didn't do it here, but maybe we'll do it at some point, is an all Centurions Blackshields list. I'm looking at it. I kind of think it would be fun to do. I forget what so Blackshields you get one of two abilities that you can, or sorry, you get two abilities you can choose, and you can kind of mix and match them. But there's one that basically makes your army all Centurions, which is really fun, which is really a cool idea for Zone Mortalis. And then there's another one that lets you take all of the Legion special equipment from any of the guys. So I like the idea of having, an Ultramarine Centurion with a Legantine axe and one of the Garrex shields, right? And then maybe an Iron Warriors guy with a graviton hammer, right? Like just have all of the Centurions with all of the different things, and they're all black shields. That would be really fun. I think that would be a really fun way to play Zone Mortalis, and might happen someday. We'll see. We'll see. All right. Well, that's it for today. Thanks very much for hanging around, and I will see you in our next video.